We're live. Okay. Hi, this is Grace J. Power, and I'm here with Rachelle Jasmine. And today we're going to be talking about the different types of sugar products that the myGoldSugar sells. We have 5 different consistencies from soft to firm and everything in between. And so I think today we just want to talk about or we wanted to start with talking about our most popular sugaring, which is the firm sugar. So I know one thing that we recommend is that it's usually the first and easiest one to start with when you're first learning sugaring, because it doesn't melt as easy as the softer sugars. So you can hold it in your hand for longer periods of time and it doesn't start getting so melty. And then Rachelle, why don't you talk about like what body areas you like to use the firm on?
So the areas that I like to use the firm on, especially when first starting out, are places like the nose, the ears, knuckles, toes, things like that. And then if somebody does run hot, like they have a warmer body temperature, then I'll use the firm sugar on the labia area because it's going to be able to get out the thicker, coarser hair a lot easier.
Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting, but one thing that's good with most people is that the hot body areas are actually the coarse hairs too. So it kind of works perfect because the firm also seems to pick up that coarse hair better for whatever reason. It just grips that coarse hair pretty well. But like underarms, the nostrils, the ears, and then of course the labia area, the anal area, all those have that coarse hair. And so that firm seems to hold its consistency better without getting too melted like the softer sugars do, but also grab that coarse, firm hair.
Right. Also, if somebody has shorter hair and they're having a hard time growing it out in places like the underarms or sideburns, then I'll go ahead and use the firm sugar because it's just going to be able to get that hair so much easier. And you will have to go over it a few more times than normal, but it's going to grab it out like the other sugars aren't able to.
Yeah, that's true. And even what about on the chin? Because I mean, also some people have like that coarse hair on the chins too.
Right, and that's a hard one to grow out as well. So then, yeah, I'll go ahead and use the plenty of powder and use the firm sugar on that area too.
Mommy, did I go, Mommy? Where did Daddy went outside? Yeah. Oh, Stellar had to come get me inside, Mommy. You want to go outside? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go make sure. Oh, I think I hear his dad. Stellar, I think Daddy came inside. Okay.
Stellar.
So
you'll know that you have a firm sugar if it's a lot thicker, if it doesn't get as soft, and if it's a lot darker. So this is going to be our firm sugar.
Oh yeah.
And it's just stiff, so it's still mobile. It's just that it's a lot stiffer. So it's just, you can stick it on the stick. It's not going to run down your hand when you have the glove on, everything. So it's a lot easier to work with when you're first starting out and learning the technique.
Yeah, and actually I was just thinking about when people are first learning, that stick method might be helpful on the hot body areas too, because then they're not transferring their hand heat into the sugar. So that might be an easy way to start off, just to try it and kind of learn that flick. What do you think about that?
That is a good idea, and to be able to spread it and to kind of force yourself to grab a smaller ball of sugar because you can only fit what's on the stick. So I think what people do a lot when they're first learning, they don't get it down because they have so much sugar in their hand that it's running down or it's just all over the place. It's hard to keep it in a good ball. So when you're using the stick, like you said, you don't have the heat from your hand and you're forced to use a smaller ball, which will make it easier for you to get the technique down.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like if you're watching this and you're like brand new to sugaring and you just are kind of curious about even getting started, I would recommend just going on an area that's like a little bit easier than jumping into like an underarm or a bikini line or something like that. Like maybe try it on your arm or on your leg, It doesn't have to be a spot that has a lot of hair, just to sort of get the feel for how it works, and it's not going to be like super painful, and it's not going to start getting too melty and stuff, but just to get a feel for how the sugar works.
That's a good idea. And I suggest if you do the legs, you go for lower legs, because when you're doing the thighs, upper thighs, sometimes it's kind of hard to hold the skin taut, and the skin will be a little tighter on the lower leg area.
Yeah. So should we start talking about the medium firm? Like, what would be the difference?
Yeah, we can just work our way down.
Okay.
So the firm is always good for those smaller areas with the coarser hair that we had mentioned. And then when it comes to medium firm, I really, really like the medium firm for Brazilians, male and female, and underarms, because it's still really strong. It's still really stiff, but it has a little bit more flexibility that allows you to spread it easier, so you're not pulling the client's hair or your own hair, so you don't have that pain nearly as bad. But you can still keep it in like a good texture, so it's not running around.
Yeah, and actually that's like before, when I used to order sugar from another company, they didn't have a medium firm, they just had like a medium and a firm. And I would always mix the two together for doing Brazilians, because it was like the firm was a little bit too hard to spread, and it was a little bit firmer in my hand, so my hand would get sore faster. But that combination of the medium and the firm together was like perfect.
Yeah.
Let's not play with the toothpaste. He brought me the toothpaste.
Stellar.
Daddy had to leave, so now Stellar might be hanging out a little bit more.
Okay. But yeah, the medium firm is a good one to start off with too. I do suggest the firm to start off with. Hi, Stellar. But maybe the medium firm after you want to try a new area, or you just want to try something new.
Okay, ready. No. Yeah, and actually, like as people get more advanced too with their technique, the firm is a good one to start with, but then just moving to the medium firm. Plus, their hair tends to get more finer, so that makes a difference too.
Definitely, yeah. And then the medium is probably my favorite sugar, because you can keep it kind of runny or like soupy as you want, or by adding more powder and working it in, you can make it a little stiffer. But it's so easy to spread. I feel like maybe if you have the technique down pretty well, and you only want to buy one sugar, the medium sugar is going to be what I would get.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there's a lot of estheticians who mostly do waxing, but they like to have sugar available in their room just for like maybe sensitive skin people, or just to have as an option, mostly for people with sensitive skin, or as an upsell, like, if somebody wants to spend a little bit more, they could do the sugaring. So for those people that, they're not doing sugaring solely and they're kind of mixing it in with wax, the medium would be a good option if they just had like one pot in their room and they just wanted to have one sugar in there. Mm-hmm. Do you think that would pretty much cover everything they needed?
I think so, because you can still do something like a Brazilian with it if you have the technique down, but then if you are doing like an upsell with it, or somebody that just has sensitive skin, you're most likely going to be doing like eyebrows or lip or maybe face, and medium's really pretty good for that.
Yeah, that's what I found too. And then let's go ahead and talk about the medium soft a little bit. I know that one's not as popular, but it does have a place.
It's not as popular, but it's one that I really like everybody to keep in mind, because when you have a larger area that you need to sugar, I like the medium soft because it stays flexible. It stays like it it can have like a lot of hair, a lot of skin cells, a lot of powder in it, and it's still going to be pretty flexible. So my favorite areas to sugar with a medium soft are chest, stomach, back, and maybe even legs. Because I don't want to waste a lot of sugar. So I can get a good sized ball of sugar in my hand, spread it on the area, pull it up, and it's just usable for almost the whole treatment.
Yeah, that's a good point. When people are doing larger areas, like the medium soft's just the best, especially if the areas kind of still have some of that little bit of coarse hair, like a chest would have or a stomach would have. And it does glide so easy. And actually, now that I think about it, if people are like trying to use less sugar, like they're trying to keep their cost down, then a softer sugar will probably keep their cost down more, because the firm, you go through more of it, because you do have to change your ball more often, because it doesn't take much like dead skin and hair getting in that ball, and then you just have to throw it away and get a fresh one. But yeah, you're right. The medium soft, it goes a long way. You can keep reusing it, before you have to throw a ball out.
Yeah. So if I'm using a medium soft and I'm going to sugar an area on anybody, I'll start out with a small amount, work that in, and then grab a stick or a spoon or something and dig out more and add that to it, so that um, it's just a little bit worked in, it's a little bit firmer, and it's just going to help that consistency to be able to pick up the hair really good, especially if they still do have some coarse hair. That helps a lot.
Yeah. So you were talking about starting with some medium soft, but then just adding more to it.
Yeah, like I'll work in a smaller ball of sugar first. I'll work it in, get some skin cells in there, get some powder in there, some hair in there, so that it's a little rougher. The texture is different. The texture is a little bit rougher. And then I'll add in my big glob of medium soft to that smaller worked in glob. And then I'll use that whole thing. And then once those two, the big ball and the smaller ball, mix in together, it's just perfect, because it's worked in just enough to pull the hair up, but it's not so worked in to where you're going to need to get a new ball either.
Yeah, and actually, like a thing with sugaring, and it's just the way it is. The first part, like when you first put it on and flick it off, that is like the hardest time to remove it, because it's just it's softer, it doesn't have that dead skin in it yet. So I like I like that idea of just starting with a small amount, so that, because if you start with a big amount, then you could just have a mess, and it's like really hard to get off. So starting with a small little ball, getting some of that dead skin in there, getting some of the hair in there, and then adding more to it, that makes a lot of sense to not get all messed up and have a hard time getting it off.
Right. That's a good one. Or even, as you mentioned before, starting out with a stick, just to get, if you don't. So what I would do is start out with a stick, so I can get a little ball worked in, and then go in with my hand, with my gloved hand, and like grab it and reach, and then take it off the stick and then work it in, and it's perfect.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah.
So then you can actually dip your hand in, because you can get so much more with your hand than you can with that little stick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and actually one thing with doing big areas, because some people think sugaring is so much slower because it looks slower, but when you can apply a big area like that, like from your ankle all the way up to your knee, or like on somebody's back, like, a hole from the mid back all the way to the edge, and so that's like a pretty big amount of product. But when you can do that, it actually goes pretty fast. But it does require that big amount of sugar, which if you're first starting, don't go there yet. But as you get the flick, and you really gain control and learn that control, you can have a really big ball of sugar and like be able to work with it in those big areas.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's good advice. And then the soft. You want to go to the soft?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know for me, like soft is the one that I use the least. It is something where when I've had it in the room, and then I've had like a firm and then maybe a medium, like I can mix the soft with the firm and kind of make the firm a little bit softer. So sometimes I use it as more of a mixing agent. If I don't
Yeah.
have a medium firm in the room or like a medium soft in the room, I can kind of use it as a mixing agent. But also, I do like it for strips, using it if you're going to do the strip method because it's going to go on the skinniest, like the thinnest, than
Mhm.
any of the other ones, and the smoothest. And you know, sugar is so heavy, so the thinner it goes on when you're using the strips, more the less sugar you're going to use, and the further it's going to go on the skin. So that's kind of my favorite part of using the soft because it picks up the fine, like the little fine hairs, the best. So I think but you can still, it's still firm enough. You can use it in the paste method, but
Mhm.
it's just, you know, if you're going to use it on like a hot body area, it's probably going to just get too melty.
Or maybe when you're a little more advanced or you have the technique down pretty well, you can use, once you have the technique down, you can use any of the sugars on any body part. You just have to know what amount to start with and when it's time to add more sugar to it. But I'm like you. I like the soft for the like fine valicy hairs or like the peach fuzz hairs. So especially like the face, upper arms, and sometimes the upper leg, because like you said, you can spread it so easy and you can spread it really thin. So a lot of times women will have very fine hair on the upper part of their leg. So you don't want to use a whole lot of sugar to get out such a small amount of hair, but they still want it to be sugared. So that's when I like to go in with the soft and sugar then, or especially to get the finer hairs on the face, just to have that spread
Yeah.
because it is so soft. It's a lot easier to spread.
Have you heard that from your clients? Like one thing I've heard from people, it seems like the soft is a little bit more aggressive on the skin. Like it's a little stickier, so they think it hurts a little more. But have you heard that response from people?
I've heard that response for the pull, like after when you're flicking, that it is a little bit more intense. But then with the firm and the medium firm, it seems to be a little bit more intense when you're spreading it because you're pulling the hair a little bit more. So it's kind of like give or take, I guess, which one you're gonna choose. But all in all, the sugaring isn't too painful.
Yeah.
Um, I say maybe on like the really sensitive areas, like for me personally, upper lip is always sensitive and Brazilian area. Other than that, no matter where I sugar or what type of sugar I use, maybe I'm just used to it, but even in the beginning, it just hurts so much less than wax. So
Yeah.
I'll take it.
That's true. That's true. Like there is that little bit of sting with the soft, but you're right. It's nothing compared to that like lingering sting of waxing.
Right. Um, it's something I really like about the soft sugar that I don't do enough that I really should do more is that if I'm using the strip method with soft, because that is what like I think a lot of people would do is use a soft as more of a warmer wax or warmer sugar, is you don't have to lay down the sugar, rip it off or pull it off with a strip, and then lay down new sugar on the next piece. I will go ahead and put the strip back down and really rub it in and give it some time, go to another area, work on that area. And by the time I come back to that original strip, it's the sugar is melted down and around, and then you can pull it up with that same strip.
Yeah, so it's like you're kind of using the paste method, but with the
Hmm.
with the strip. It's kind of like a
Yeah,
combo.
yeah, yeah. And so it
Yeah,
just it saves you so much sugar
yeah,
and so many strips and sticks.
yeah. That's true. And we're all about trying to like extend the product as fast, you know, as far as you can and
Have as
save as
little
much.
waste as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the soft sugar
Oh
and
yeah.
here's the firm sugar, and you can just see the difference in the two. And then there's this soft and the firm. So they're just so different from each other that you'll really be able to tell. So from soft to firm, it just gets darker and darker and stiffer and stiffer. So from firm to soft, it just gets lighter and a little more flexible for every sugar or every flavor.
Yeah, and that was one thing Phil was actually mentioning at her sugar class. She was like, just as a little note, you should label the jar of what flavor it is, because during the class they would get, like, the lids would get all taken off and they didn't know what sugar was what sugar. But that's a good point that, like, a lot of times you can just tell by the color. The darker the sugar, the firmer the sugar. And then the lighter ones are going to be the lighter ones. So especially if you just have, like, maybe 2 or 3, you can kind of, if you do mix up the tops,
Yeah.
you can kind of go back and figure out what was what by the color, based on the color.
Right. You can compare them to the ones that we have online. Or, I mean, you could always send me a picture, because I can tell from color what it is. Even, like, if it's between a soft and a medium soft, or a firm and a medium firm, it's going to be hard for somebody to tell when they're first starting out. But once you get the sugars, different types of sugars, and you can compare them to each other, you'll really know. Like, when I'm cooking the sugar and I'm trying to make a firm, and I think that I've made the firm, but it's come out a medium firm, I'll know by the color. And then, of course, I test it out afterwards, but, you can just tell by the color.
Yeah.
So let's see. But we warm all the sugars up the same way, pretty much. Just in a wax pot or a sugar pot, a warming pot, on the sugar setting or the lowest setting. And then, how long do you think it takes for a jar of sugar to warm up?
I usually can get, I think it's, like, perfect if I do 30 seconds for a full jar. And then as the jar gets lower and lower and lower, amounts of sugar, then I would just lower that amount. So, like, if it was like half full, then 15 seconds. And that's pretty much just to kind of warm it so you can get a ball out, but it's not going to make it melty. And then if I know I'm going to use it as a soft sugar, like if I'm going to be using it as a strip, actually I meant to say as a strip sugar, like on my legs or my arms or something, then I actually do a full minute for a full jar. So it's like twice the amount of time. Okay. And that way it's more the closer to the temperature of your traditional wax, where it's, like, not going to burn your skin, but it's definitely going to feel kind of like hot when you first put it on. But that way it goes on smooth, and you don't have to use as much sugar.
Okay, so you're talking about in the microwave, right?
Yeah, that would be in the microwave.
So when I warm it up, I do pretty much the same as you, just depending on how much sugar is left in the jar. But at every 25 to 30 seconds, I go in there and I mix it up, because the lower half of the jar is going to be a lot hotter than the top half of the jar, no matter how much you have in there. And so I've done this before, where I've warmed up the sugar. The top half looked like it was pretty solid, but as tacky as I needed it to be. I went in there with my hand and I reached too low and I kind of burnt my fingertips. So just make sure you mix it up really well before you start using it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never had that happen, but I could see how that could be like, oh, yeah. And then if you're using a warmer, then just to kind of heads up, it takes a long time to get it, like, to the perfect consistency. You can usually get a ball out after it's been sitting there for maybe 30 minutes, but to get it, like, all the way the right temperature all throughout usually takes like 2 hours. So just plan on that if you're using it in that method.
Right.
Or another tip, or you probably were just going to say this, is, like, just heat it in the microwave first and then put it in the warmer.
Oh, so when I take clients, I'm not expecting to take a client. That's what I do. Yeah, I'll pop it in the microwave. Like, if somebody comes to the office and I'm, like, gonna do a demo for them, obviously we can't wait 2 hours for it to warm up. So I'll just throw it in the microwave and then I'll leave it in the pot afterwards. But what I was gonna say is, make sure if you're warming it up with a pot warmer, put it on a very low setting, or the sugar setting if it has one, because from my experience too, if you have it at, like, a higher setting, the middle part right here will down, and I've actually melted it down enough to where the sugar, like, started coming out the bottom.
Oh,
so you don't want that mess.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be heated hardly at all, so that's why it's, like, just the very lowest. Like, you pretty much are just doing body temperature, or it is a little more above room temperature, so it's more like closer to the body temperature, like 90, 95 degrees or something like that.
Right. And even with the medium soft, and soft especially, if you dig in with a spoon or your hand or a stick, anything like that, and you can just get a little piece out and you start working that on your own body or your client's body, it will melt down pretty fast. And I won't spread it because it will really pull the hair. I'll just try to set it down and slowly like lift my hand off. And then what's on their body, the body heat, the body temperature is gonna warm it up pretty fast. Or you can keep your hand on it and keep like warm it up even faster. So you don't even really need to warm them up if you don't have a way to do it.
Yeah, that's true. And I've noticed, like, being in Florida, just because usually the house temperature is pretty warm, like 75, 77, and probably because of the humidity here too. Like my jar of sugar, I rarely do warm it up unless I'm gonna do like a big area. But if I'm just doing like an underarm or Brazilian, I usually just start with it cold and just, like you said, just put it on the skin and then just let it kind of sit on there for a little bit, and then it's perfect. So in fact, when you're first learning, it's almost better to like start with it more firm than to melt it too much, because then it's harder to control it if it gets too soft.
Right. And I think one of the best things about sugar is that what I tell everybody, especially if it's a salon that we're selling it to, is that there's room for error. Because one of the most popular areas that you're going to sugar or wax is the eyebrows. And that's something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the soft, is that if you're used to strip wax or hot wax and you want to introduce sugaring into your salon or into your home, anything, then soft might be a good way to go, because you can use it like a strip, like you would hot wax, but there's room for error because the sugar wax cleans off with water. So if you get some sugar in an area you didn't want it in, or maybe it's a little too close to the hairline, anything, you just grab a piece of gauze or a towel, soak it, wipe it off, you're ready to go again.
Yeah, it's very forgiving. I love that about sugar, and I think the clients like too that they're not gonna have any problems. Like if you do get it in their hair, you don't have to cut their hair off, which I used to have to do with waxing a few times. Or I was even gonna mention, like, just in general, like if you get it anywhere, like on the floor, on your clothes, on your equipment, anywhere at all, it's so easy to clean off. You just need water, and it just comes right off. And especially if you use like a hot towel or hot water, then it just melts right off and comes right off. So
right. Yeah, and that's how we clean the jars, is if we have jars that we need to sanitize because they've had sugar in them before, I just soak it in water, or I put water in it, I put the lid on, I leave it sit overnight, and then I wash them out and put them in the dishwasher to sanitize them, and they're ready to go. You can use the jars for something else after.
yeah, that's true. And actually, just to mention on that, like if you are locally buying sugar, we do offer $1 rebate for every jar that you bring back in, so you can use that as credit towards more sugar. And we do have a few salons that do that, so I mean, definitely keep that in mind, especially if you're close enough to just drop off the sugar jars.
Yes. So then after you're done sugaring, we always like you to give us any feedback that you might have, especially on the consistency, maybe something that helped you that could possibly help somebody else, any advice you might have. So feel free to email or call and just let us know what you think. But then afterwards, when you're going to put the sugar away, you just want to, what I like to do is I like to clean off the rim of the sugar jar right here, because when you put the lid on and when the sugar is like cold or room temperature, it's a little tough to get off. So I'll just clean this part off right here, and then you just store it at room temperature.
Yeah, perfect. And it should last, your sugar jar should last for up to 3 months. Usually you want to use it within like 2 to 3 months. After that, it could potentially start getting kind of sticky or losing its firmness or just its texture. So definitely try to use it up within the first 2 to 3 months that you get it. And then if you notice that it got all sticky and it's not really usable as the paste method, you may still be able to heat it up and use it more as a strip wax sugar. So that is one way to maybe use it instead of just tossing it in the garbage. So
yes, don't throw it away. It's liquid gold right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we covered mostly what we wanted to cover. Was there anything else you wanted to add, though? I mean, we could talk about sugar all day.
I know, I really could. I could talk about it all day. No, I think that this is really good. This is really exciting, and I'm just really excited to make more videos and to teach people as much as I can about sugaring because I really do believe in it. I love it because I have sensitive skin and because I've had so many sessions with people where I've been burnt by hot wax before, and so I just think that this is a really good alternative to use either in your home or in your salon, or if you're in school and you're learning. You know, we teach the classes for sugaring. I can go to your shop and show you how to do it there. Grace is in Florida. She can show you there. And where's Phil again?
She's in Maryland, and she can travel like a few of the states kind of close to there because it's kind of they're all pretty close. So yeah, if you're close to Maryland, she puts on classes at her place, and I'm sure she would go to your salon as well if we knew ahead of time we could get that set up.
Yeah, so I just want everybody to know that we're all available all the time, and I really look forward to making more videos.
Thanks, Rachelle. I'm gonna go ahead and stop broadcast, and I'm gonna call you right after this.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.